Broncos country, week one of the preseason is in the books, and the Denver Broncos have defeated the Indianapolis Colts 34-30. Now, yes, this win, it really doesn't mean anything. It's the preseason. It's to evaluate players. It's to see who's going to be the best 53 players to put on your 53-man roster. But man, does it feel good when your team wins? And in today's video, we're not really going to be doing a recap per se. We're going to just be kind of going over some players that stood out. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over all three quarterbacks' performances, and then I'm going to go over some players who really stood out to me. Now, these are going to be younger players that I'm watching for positional battle. So guys like Jaleel McLaughlin or Cortland Sutton, who did play today, as I'm recording this play today, who did play in the preseason game one versus the Colts. They're not going to really count. We kind of know what they are. These are going to be players that stood out to me and kind of impressed and made a name for themselves. So that's kind of going to be what this video is going to be about. It's not going to be the recap like I normally do, which I'm not really a fan of how I do recaps. I'm trying to look for a new format, how to do that. But nonetheless, let's get into who impressed me. Yeah, it's not going to be everyone. There could be players that I'm missing, but as always, before we do get started, I just do want to remind you that Jesus is King, and I pray that you give your life to him as he has got a plan and a purpose for you. And I just truly hope that you accept Jesus with your whole heart and believe that he died on the cross for your sins. Now, a lot of people think that the reason we get to go to heaven is by how many times we go to church or how many times we read the Bible, how many times we do these good deeds. And well, yes, those things are important and we should want to do those things. The sole thing that saves us is our faith and belief in Jesus, that he sacrificed himself on the cross and rose from the dead 3 days later. You know, a lot of people aren't going to like that I'm sharing this message, but quite frankly, I don't care. It's an important message to me and one that this channel is centered around. So, you know, if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I'm going to continue to say this in front of every single one of my videos. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump straight in to the preseason week one recap. Kind of recap. So we're going to be going over the order of the quarterbacks we're going to be going over the quarterbacks in the order that they played, starting, of course, with Jarrett Stidham. Now, Stidham only got 2 drives. He completed 4 of his 7. He had 4 completions on his 7 throws for a 57% completion percentage for 37 yards and an interception. But let's be real, that interception was by no means Jarrett Stidham's fault. He threw it out to the flat to Samaje Perine, who kind of bobbled he bobbled the football, and it was intercepted by the Colts. Then that, honestly, kind of ended his day. And so Stidham, did he get really a fair shake? No, he only got 2 drives. But, you know, I think we were all excited to see Bo Nix, and that's kind of, you know, we were all happy to see Bo Nix. And so it's unfair to Stidham, sure. But what he did with his time, he looked pretty sharp. You know, he completed a couple passes, looked downfield, wasn't super flashy. You know, I'm not going to blame the interception on him. That was the interceptions on Perine. They should really make a new stat on interceptions that aren't the quarterback's fault. But it will go down as an interception for Jarrett Stidham, and that's how his day went. But next up, we got rookie first-round quarterback Bo Nix, the 12th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, and Bo Nix flashed. Now, let's start off with the struggles. Now, he did struggle a little bit early. His first pass, you know, was kind of a suicide pass offline to Greg Dulcich, and it was almost intercepted. Luckily, it was dropped, and it was kind of out of the reach of the defender, but still a risky pass. His second pass was incomplete. I believe that was a little bit behind the receiver. But then his next passing attempt, he rolled out to the left a little bit and finds Cortland Sutton on the sideline to pick up the first down, and Bo Nix impressed. You can see that he had 1 touchdown here on the stat sheet, but he really should have had 2. He threw a deep ball to Josh Reynolds down the right sideline, and kind of just went through Josh Reynolds' hands. That's a pass he has to grab. Yes, it's kind of a hard play to make, but in the NFL, you should have that catch, and so Bo should have 2 touchdowns. I mean, it doesn't really matter here in the preseason because what Bo did, how he performed, was pretty solid, going 15 for 21 for a 71% completion percentage for 125 yards. 125 passing yards. He also had 17 rushing yards, so he showed off his arm, but he also showed off his legs and being able to scramble and run to pick up first downs. And then he had 5 drives. 4 of them were scoring drives, but I'm not going to count the 5th drive because that 5th drive Bo Nix threw a pass to Lucas Kroll. Kroll caught it and immediately fumbled it on the first play. So I'm not really going to count that one. It counts. Obviously, it counts. But in terms of the long scheme of things, doesn't really count. But, Bo Nix really impressed, really flashed, and he is going to get the start of week 2 versus the Green Bay Packers, which it's a home game. And as you know, my dad has season tickets, and I'm lucky enough to go with him. And so, I'm just thankful he's had season tickets since I was a kid. I'm 23 now, and I'm grateful he has them. And so we're going to be going to the Packers game. And so, I'm excited to see him start. Is he going to start a lot of time, though? I don't know. He could kind of have a Stidham if he has truly locked up the quarterback one battle, which, he might have. I don't know if Sean will admit that yet. But if he has, how many drives is he going to play? Is he going to get 1 or 2 drives like Stidham got today? Again, I keep saying today because I'm recording this the day of the preseason game. You guys are most likely seeing this the day afterwards. But, it'll be interesting to see. But Bo Nix really flashed, and I was impressed with him. Next up, we have Zach Wilson at the quarterback 3 position. And actually, before we jump into him, the 71% completion percentage, he's a very accurate quarterback, and he gets the ball out fast, and we saw that today, and that was very evident today. So I just wanted to throw that point out there. Forgot to mention it. Now let's talk about Zach Wilson. So for Zach Wilson, he went 10 for 13 with a 76% completion percentage for 117 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. But that 0 touchdowns should not be taken against him. He played pretty solid. Did he play the greatest? No. There was a play where he could have had a touchdown to Marvin Mims if he threw a little bit more mustard, had a little bit more velocity under it, kind of threw it up and over and led Marvin Mims. So that was a pass you would like to see him complete for a touchdown. But, he is, he's still young. Like I mentioned in a previous, I think it was my last video. But, he's still young. He flashed, and, he kind of does have that upside, and I've seen it all over Broncos Twitter, and I'm in agreement, and I've been kind of pushing this own narrative here on this channel that I kind of want Zach Wilson to be the quarterback too. He's still young, still has the upside, so I think Sean Payton sees something in him. So I personally would like Zach Wilson to be the quarterback too, but if Sean Payton wants the more surefire answer at quarterback too, I can see him going with Stidham, but we still have 2 preseason games to decide that. But I was impressed by Zach Wilson. Was he as flashy as Bo Nix and excelling like Bo Nix? No, but, for what he did do, I was fairly impressed. Again, this is, in my opinion, for the backup quarterback job. Zach Wilson, I think Bo Nix has kind of solidified that thing, but we'll see. But I really liked what I saw today from Zach Wilson. Now, if we hop into players that I was really impressed by for the Denver Broncos here, the first one I'm going to go with is Audric Estime. Now, the first thing you'll see when you're looking at the stats, there was a fumble that Estime had that I didn't put on here. I could have. I was just, I didn't. But Estime did have a fumble, so I do want to throw that in there. I believe he I think he was the one who was stripped, if I remember correctly. But he did have a fumble, so obviously we got to work on ball security. One thing that I didn't put on here that I wasn't impressed by that definitely needs work is the penalties, specifically on the offensive line. There were so many holding calls, so many false start calls, so many penalties that need to be cleaned up. That's unacceptable how many penalties we took on the offensive line and just mental mistakes that we have to cut out if we want to be a successful football team. So I wasn't impressed by that, and I just wanted to throw that in here because this will not be on a slide. This will not be in this presentation, but I felt like it was important to mention. As for Estime really impressed. He was that thumper physical running back. He isn't that speedster, wasn't super fast, but he had 10 carries for 31 yards, a touchdown, with 3 receptions for 132 yards. Was that correct? I don't think that's correct. Let me look at this. Let me look at the stats because I don't think that Estime had 132 receiving yards. That doesn't sound right. But, maybe he did. Let me see here. Sorry, he had 3 receptions for 13 yards. Let me go ahead and let me fix this real quick. All right, guys, we are back, and you can see I fixed it. He had 3 receptions for 13 yards. I was going to say 132 yards, that does not sound right. But yeah, he had 3 receptions for 13 yards. I know I'm probably going to get a comment about the 132 for someone who didn't watch up to this point. But yeah, it is what it is. He had 3 receptions for 13 yards, made a little bit of an impact in the receiving game. But yeah, Estime did look impressive, and he was flashing. Needs to work on that ball security. Can't get stripped. Can't turn the ball over. Can't fumble like that. So yeah, that does need to be worked on. But for his first pro game, albeit preseason, Estime was pretty impressive. Next up, we have Blake Watson, and I've been pushing this Blake Watson narrative all off season. I think that he should make the team as an undrafted free agent. I thought he was going to get drafted at some point in the NFL draft. He goes undrafted, and we are able to pick him up as an undrafted free agent. And, Blake Watson was impressing today. He had 9 carries, 26 yards, 1 touchdown. He also had 1 reception for 33 yards. Now, he did also have a fumble, which was recovered by the Broncos. It was on the handoff, and initially I was like, okay, there was a fumble, so that could also be on the quarterback. That could be on Zach Wilson on the handoff exchange. I thought that was on Blake Watson. I thought the fumble was on Blake Watson, so got to have that ball security on the handoff, like I was mentioning with Estime. But Blake Watson was flashing, and I really think that if I were to guess what the running back core looks like, I think it's going to be Javonte, Samaje, Audric, and Blake. I don't know if Piron's going to make the team, especially after the bobble interception. Maybe he still does, but in my opinion, I think it's going to be those 4 guys. Tyler Beatty, he was pretty impressive today too. I do not believe I put him on here, but I was really, really impressed with Blake Watson. It's kind of backing up what I was saying this offseason. So, I do hope Blake Watson does make the team, because if we try and get him on our practice squad, I think he will be picked up by another team, especially after today's performance. Of course, we'll have to see how the rest of the preseason goes. But yeah, I was very impressed by Blake Watson today. Next up, we have Devon Vele, who I think is going to make the 53-man roster. In my way too early prediction, I didn't have him making it, but I do think he's going to make it now. Now, if you look at the stats, it doesn't really show a whole lot, and this is why we can't go off stats. I like to say this in every single one of my videos. Stats lie and stats can deceive, so you got to watch the film, got to watch the tape, and actually got to watch them play to understand the full story. So Vele had 1 reception for 8 yards, obviously an average of 8, no touchdowns. But what he did do is when he was targeted, he was able to jump up and he was able to get the pass interference calls a couple times that game to advance the ball down the field. Now, there was a play that he could have had a touchdown on. I believe it was, if I were to guess, I haven't looked at the film, haven't looked at the tape, but I think it was an option route that Vele had where he could decide to go up and into the corner of the end zone, or he could cut in. And he cut in, and Bo Nix threw it to the corner of the end zone, so they were on the same page, and you could see kind of Bo yelling at him. You can see Bo's leadership kind of coming in right there. Not like obviously a mad yell, but like a kind of a corrective yell. But Vele was impressive for what I saw today, and I do think he makes a team. He is an older rookie, 26, turns 27, and I think in October or something like that. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Vele the rest of the preseason. Next up, I have Lucas Krull. Now, Krull does have that 1 fumble, like I mentioned earlier, where Bo Nix threw it to him, and he fumbled it. And actually, what was impressive about that play, I think I saw Zach Stevens on Twitter tweet it, that it was actually supposed to be a screen pass to Samaje Perine, I think it was, but the Colts blew that up. So instead of forcing that ball in, he gets it to Krull, and so maybe Krull wasn't expecting to get the pass there on a designated or on a screen, but you should always be expecting to get the ball. So got to work on that ball security with a fumble. Didn't score a touchdown, but he had 4 receptions for 31 yards and a 7.8 average. So he did make up for it the next drive, especially on the first 2 passes for Bo Nix. I believe they were to Krull, and he made up for it. However, Krull did get injured this game, so hopefully it's nothing serious. I believe it was being speculated that it was a turf toe. So we'll have to see what the exact injury is for Lucas Krull. But yeah, prayers up to him, man. I hope he's okay. I know a lot of Broncos country is hoping for the best in him, and they're thinking he can be our future tight end. One, to me, I don't know about that. I think it's going to most likely either be Dulcich or we might draft a guy like a Luke Lachey this upcoming year. But Kroll's a solid number 2 depth tight end guy who I'm rooting for, but maybe he proves me wrong this season. So hopefully he heals up and hopefully his injury is nothing too serious. Next up, another guy who I was impressed by was Hunter Kampmoyer, who had 3 receptions, 29 yards, and 9.7 average. And, he looked really solid out there. Of course, he was Bo Nix's tight end at Oregon in 2022. So, yeah, Kampmoyer, a solid guy. I don't necessarily think he makes the roster, though. More than likely, he's going to be a practice squad guy. Maybe I'm surprised, though. Maybe the front office likes him more than I expect. Of course, maybe something happens in the preseason that forces the Broncos to give him a roster spot because he's breaking out and he's playing really impressive. His play has been really impressive. But yeah, Hunter Kampmoyer really stood out in the first game. But again, I think he's going to be more of a practice squad guy for the Denver Broncos. Next up, it's going to be Jonah Ellis. I was really impressed by Jonah Ellis's game again today. The rookie third round pick rather. He had 2 tackles, both of them solo tackles. He had 1 sack, but he also had a quarterback hit. And that quarterback hit is actually really, really important. The quarterback hit forced an interception by Sam Ehlinger. And the reason why it was so critical is it was because it was after the Lucas Kroll fumble. And this gave the Broncos possession for Bo Nix to run a 2-minute drill on offense to drive down the field and score, which is really valuable experience to have in the NFL. So getting that turnover back was huge. Now, I do think Jonah Ellis still needs a little bit more to develop, needs to develop more as a run stopper, kind of a pass rush specialist. But I was really impressed with Jonah Ellis, and, I'm kind of feeling a little bit better about our edge rushing core. Very young core, but, I've been impressed by him. So we'll have to see how he continues to perform throughout the preseason. But I do think Ellis obviously is going to make the 53-man roster, being a high draft pick in the 3rd round. Next up is going to be Riley Moss. And a lot of people have been saying that Riley Moss is actually, there's been a report, and if you want to choose to trust the report, you can, or if not, that's pretty valid. We'll have to just see how he plays for the rest of the season. But it sounds like Riley Moss is kind of running away with the cornerback 2 battle. Again, take with that what you will. But he had 2 tackles, 2 solos, 0 assists, 0 interceptions. Almost had an interception today, though. And to me, Riley Moss, I really hope he's the cornerback 2. Of course, we traded up to get him, gave up a future 3rd. In the 2023 draft, we gave up a 2024 3rd, so it was a future pick to go up and get him. So, yeah, I really hope he's the cornerback too, and we'll have to see how he performs. But from what I saw today, he was pretty impressive, and we'll just have to see how the rest of the preseason games go for Riley Moss and the other cornerbacks. Another guy, I for some reason to jump forward 2 pages, but another guy I was impressed by was Chris Abrams-Drain, the 5th round rookie out of Missouri. Now I definitely messed this up, so let me go ahead and let me fix this. So he had 2 tackles, 1 solo, 0 assist, and 1 interception. Yeah, it obviously didn't make sense if he only had 1 tackle and then 2 solo tackles, but yeah, Chris Abrams-Drain, 2 tackles, 1 interception. I know it says interceptions, and that's not grammatically correct. It should be 1 interception. That's just my OCD going off, but I'm just going to leave it for right now so I don't have to make another cut and edit it. But yeah, Chris Abrams-Drain, he was pretty impressive. He's on the smaller side for a cornerback, but he did make a play today. He picked off the 2-point conversion and, didn't bring it back. And it's funny because I was talking to the people I was watching a game with. I'm like, all right, let's get a pick 2 here when the Colts were going for 2, and he picked it off. Obviously couldn't return it, but I just thought it was funny. So I figured I'd tell you. I mean, it's not funny, but whatever. He had the 1 interception, and he was really impressive. Now, most likely, Chris Abrams-Drain is going to be a slot corner in the NFL. maybe he could play outside, and maybe he proves me wrong, and honestly, a lot of people wrong, because a lot of people say he's going to be a slot corner. And right now, he's going to be behind Jaquan McMillan. But I was impressed with what I saw today from Chris Abrams-Draine. Maybe he's more of a developmental guy this year, so we will have to see. But yeah, Chris Abrams-Draine, he was my number 10 corner in the class. We get him in the 5th round. And so, yeah, if he is designated to the slot, we kind of got a blockage there with him and Jaquan McMillan. But, maybe if he's the next best corner, maybe the Broncos move him to outside. We will have to see. But I was impressed today by Chris Abrams-Draine. And then finally, we have Damari Mathis. Now, ignore the stats. Obviously, the stats, he didn't record a stat today, essentially, out of the ones on here. But early in the game, he almost intercepted a pass from Anthony Richardson, because him and Riley Moss, they both got the start, as Pat Surtain's obviously not going to be playing in the preseason, but they both got the start and almost forced an interception. And, he looked pretty solid against the Colts starters. I know, I don't think that Michael Pittman was playing. I can't remember if he played or not, but he looked pretty solid against the Colts starters that were out there today anyway. And so, I'm hoping Damari Mathis is improving his development and, just improving every day to potentially take back that corner 2 spot, because he was one of my guys coming out of Pittsburgh in that 2022 draft. And I was super pumped when we got him. Comes in at the end of his rookie year, plays pretty solid at corner, was a starter last year at cornerback too, and really struggled. Eventually got benched for Fabian Moreau, but I'm hoping that Damari Mathis can continue to improve to be that solid player, because I do like Damari Mathis as a player. And so I hope all the best for him. But that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you could help me reach that goal, that would mean the absolute world to me. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.